Story number two. Who is right when it comes to the issues? Now, this story surfaced in because of we're approaching, getting closer and closer to the election, and you're starting to see each side try to create an identity, and the talks about who can govern and who can be the right candidate for the next phase in the United States election cycle, presidential cycle. Which administration can lead without causing so much chaos and confusion, and which administration can rise to the occasion and be able to tackle problems like the debt crisis without as much drama and as much chaos as we have been seeing from previous administrations or this administration in general. So this story is as crept into the top eight because each side is claiming to be right. We've heard Bernie Sanders make some amazing claims about how if he were governing, or if he were the front runner, or if he were the actual president, he tackles certain issues with poverty, taking wealth from the ultra wealthy corporations and giving back into the economy. We've heard Joe Biden talk about, and Tim Ryan talk about, the middle class and how we need to strengthen the workforce. So talk like this has a lot of substance to it when you're talking about voters and what the issues are really about. Now, there's some stories that surfaced in related to this topic. There is talk circulating about what Trump's tax cuts really did to the economy, and some say we're headed in the wrong direction. So even when you look at the economy and you look how stories like this really have a lot of meaning to them as we get closer and closer to to people trying to see what is actually beneficial. When you look at the U.S. government and how it's been losing billions in corporate tax revenue from I think there was a story that surfaced about tax revenue by the IRS. I'm going to reword that a little bit. They say that they've been losing billions because of certain cuts to the IRS that could have been able to get. I think they're talking about up to additional 34.3 billion in taxes if they would have had 13.7 billion in additional resources at the IRS. So with all of this cutting going on with this administration, people are starting to say, what would happen if we were to try to stay on course with some things without cutting certain things. So if you look at big government and manning the government to be able to do its job, would that be beneficial instead of cutting the payroll? So when you look at stories like this, when it talks about who's right on the issues, there's different sides to this. Now, I want to clean this up a bit so you can kind of understand what I'm talking about. Is it better to have more people working for the government, or less people on the government payrolls, saving the government dollar and reinvesting it back into other programs? So that's what this is all about, and that's what you'll probably see happening. Now, the big thing is when it comes to story number two, and the reason why story number two has any viability in the matter at all, is because when you look at the reality of the situation, the government needs to bring in more money to be able to bring down the debt, which will in turn to bring down prices, because it will help battle the fact of inflation. It will help the government be able to pay its bills without having to tax more people. Now, that's the common thought. So when you have President Trump talking about tax cuts, now what you have to realize is that yes, it's putting more money into corporations' pockets, but it's not putting more money into government, because the government is slashing taxes. So that means that they're receiving less in revenue. So they're trying. So Trump's plan was to go after governments like the foreign governments, people who owe the United States. States, and people like communist regimes. So with this, we'll probably see a lot of different tactics in how we approach the issues when it comes to the next election, which is when it comes to the issues. And that's why story number two will probably stay alive, because it has something in it. It has a lot of substance. Then you have to look at certain issues like abortion, and how states like Tennessee plans to ban abortions, and you look at how women are shaping the next election, because they're looking for that candidate that has sympathy for not only their problems but their concerns. Women are concerned about having children and the fact that some of the fathers are not staying around. They're concerned about the well-being of their bodies, how they make decisions in this new world that we live in, and how they themselves can raise a family. Will they have more pay, be able to take care of themselves if they choose the single life? And some women are just taking advantage of the system. So when you look at these issues and you look at what's actually happening within government, these are main concerns, and this is why the next election will be there will be a lot of key talking points when it comes to these certain topics and these certain issues. Some other things that you have to look at is the president and how his strategy and how his style of governing is. Some people say that this president is trying to rewrite America's founding principles by his stance on immigration, and they're saying that his style of leadership is not only chaotic, but it's a little bit rough around the edges. And some people are able to follow this with excitement, and they think that what he's doing is actually legitimate. And I mean, there are so many different of ideas when it, or I wouldn't say ideas, but views when it comes to this president and his policies. I mean, you have to look at the fact that the way he says that he's blaming mental health on gun violence. A lot of mental people who have mental illnesses say some of them don't even have access to guns already. So he's changed his rhetoric up from saying that gun violence is the result of background checks, and then he starts talking about mental illness. So a lot of this rhetoric coming from this president is not appealing to a lot of people. So we plan to see this take center stage as we get closer and closer to the debating and the primaries and all of that jazz that comes along with the elections. Then you have to look at how people are viewing ICE, immigration customs enforcement. Now you have to think about the detention centers. Now they're talking about how there's been a surge in Mississippi and Louisiana, and this is alarming immigration activists because we've seen such an aggressive crackdown on immigration. Now this is a key concern coming into the next election, because immigration is a big issue. It's a big concern, especially when you have women or children and women being separated, and families being separated. It reminds you of the old Aztec days, where the where they had the Mexican gods when they would talk about how they're sacrificing children. So their culture is being disrupted because these people are seeking refuge. They're seeking a better life. Families want to stay together. Women want a better life for their children, and we don't want to see this idea of people getting in talk about sacrificing babies and stuff. Like I said, that when you hear talk like this, it kind of stirs the pot on what is really happening in the immigration crisis. And when I say that, when you see the reason why I bring this up is because when you see children being separated, you see babies dying at the border. If you read the history of the ancient civilizations that used to rule Mexico, they did have, I believe it was the Aztec that did sacrifice babies. So this is what's scary. They had all different types of cultural differences, and the reason why I say it's kind of relating to what's happening now is because there are actual children dying for the cause of trying to seek a better life, and this doesn't make sense in as we approach 2020. We're in the 2000s. This is the supposed to be the time where people are we've supposed to have advancements enough to be able to take care of ourselves on this planet, but you still see these issues taking center stage, and that's what's making people afraid. There was even some talks about how a guard drove a truck injuring two people who were apparently protesting ICE. So when you see these policies, this is a big issue come 2020. When it comes to immigration, this is a big concern because of the fact there are people dying, and we're not. The reason why I bring up ancient civilizations is because we're not in that time frame. This is a time frame where people have enough resources to accommodate one another, and right now we're supposed to be headed into the future, and we're going a few steps back with all this violence and all this chaos, and it's really stirring up the pot because people are looking for great leadership, and we do not need all this conflict and all this craziness. Trump's approval rating drops. They're talking about it drops after mass shootings. It dropped in the latest Fox News poll. So Trump, it will be a key issue as we approach 2020 and how if he's able to get reelected because of his governing style. Abortion groups announces prepaid gas programs to help cover travel for women seeking procedures. Like I said, ancient civilizations sacrificed children. And that's why when you talk about the issues in this 2019, now we're headed into 2020. We don't want to see women sacrificing children. We don't want to see this, especially in the land of the free, the home of the brave. These issues will take center stage because mothers, especially people who are not aware of what's happening on the bigger stage, when women are going in there and they're having abortions, they're having babies, and they don't know what to do. They don't have the knowledge and the skills to be able to raise a family. These issues are really important to women, and it will be interesting to see how candidates talk about and discuss how these issues will be resolved and because we don't want to get back into the olden, really ancient days of how people were able to do rain dances, and how people's beliefs kind of took the attention off of which is really humans living together amongst one another, and we don't want to get back to that. The third world thinking. I hope I'm trying my best to be able to get you to understand that style of thinking is over. We're in a new time frame where some people still have that ancient way of thinking, and they really don't advance their knowledge to understand how to better raise their children, find a better life, and to find better living conditions for their children. So these issues will take center stage. Survey shows that most Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. That will be another key issue when we get closer to the election. Muslim scholars say that Trump is more committed to protecting religious freedom abroad. They're saying that he's more committed in comparison to Obama and President Bush. So as we get closer to 2020, story number 2, who's right when it comes to the issues? This will be a big topic because we don't want to go back to the old-fashioned way of thinking where people are sacrificing children, they're having human sacrifices, orgies, and all of this other crazy nonsense that comes from old and ancient civilizations and how ancient people used to live. We're trying to go into a new century of thinking where people can live amongst each other and have all the resources that they need and the knowledge and the skills to be able to manage their lives and to be able to manage each other's lives, getting along. So story number 2 is definitely going to stay alive. It has everything in it to basically be a hot topic as we get closer and closer to the next election. You're in the Mediator with me, Brian West. Whew, mediation can be tough, but somebody's got to do it. If you want to be a contributor or help out anyway, all you have to do is visit www.methodinc.com, methodinc.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something, keeping you informed every day, every week with top stories, the top 8 stories that made it in, and the stories that, if you want to check out the stories that almost made it in, and the stories that didn't make it, all you have to do is visit the website www.method8inc.com, method8.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something, or sponsor a program if you want to help us out. Constantly reminding you that I'm just the mediator, the man in the middle. The news outlets, journalists, and the people on the front lines deserve all the credit. As a child, I was raised up to the sun, given the strength of 10 mediators to go on and tackle every topic to keep you informed. So if you yourself want to help out, all you have to do is visit www.method8inc.com, method8.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something, or just sponsor a program. Every little bit counts.
If you need help, then dial your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.